Welcome to the Sacad Guled Show, your front row seat to the journeys of leaders, innovators, and change makers redefining what's possible. And today, I'm honored to sit down with Omar Fateh, Minnesota State Senator, community advocate, and a son of Somali immigrant running for a mayor of Minneapolis, a husband, renter, and a long life champion of working families. Omar has been bold voice for affordable housing, police accountability, and immigrant rights. As a progressive leader, he's focused on building Minneapolis that's safe, inclusive, and full opportunity for everyone, not just for the wealthy few. In the face of renewal national challenge, Omar says it's time for the city to rise together with courage and compassion to protect what's been built and reimagine what's next. Omar, thank you for joining us, brother. How are you?
Thank you for the opportunity, brother. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, man. It's glad to have you on the show.
Thank you.
So tell me, Omar, why give it a shot at this thing? Why running for a mayor of Minneapolis?
Yeah, so the unscripted version is that there's a lot of issues that neighbors have come to me as a senator, whether it's at my office, in our office hours, whether it's in the community, like meet and greets or in coffee meetings, whether it's at neighborhood meetings, issues that were more out of our control at the state level and more local city level issues, like how do we respond to our encampments crisis situations? How do we deal with 911 calls either getting dropped or police not responding? How are we responding to like the basic city services that seem to be not sufficient enough for especially some of our most vulnerable communities? And so I care about the city, I care about the people in it, and I carry those stories with me. And I more than ever right now, especially now that we have Trump back in office, who has a trifecta. He has the House and he has the Senate also, and a Supreme Court that's going to do whatever he wants.
Yes.
I think now more than ever, we need a city that is protecting everyone and serving everyone. And that's why I want to lead the city.
Awesome. No, thank you so much. That's very well put together. You haven't talked about forward-thinking leadership. What does that actually look like day to day if you become a Minneapolis mayor?
That's so a couple of things. Number one, I'll touch on policy, and then I'll touch on like the personal. Policy-wise, there's a lot of issues that are going on that are hurting our city, in which we are more reactive rather than proactive. Meaning, rather than dealing with the issues on the front end, we were waiting till things get bad and then reacting to it.
Yeah.
For example, probably one of the biggest issues we have is our encampments and our
Yes.
homeless population.
Especially right here on Lake Street,
Yep.
right by the 35W.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And so, how do we prevent them from forming in the first place, rather than just putting up fences and saying you guys cannot be here? How do we do so in a way in which we're actually providing people with treatment and housing and services on the front end? And then when encampments do form, rather than bulldozing them, how are we going to do just that? Build affordable housing, provide shelter spaces in which people are saying there's not enough. How are we going to provide treatment? But unfortunately, the only issue with the city is the only way the issue is being dealt with by the city is that the mayor thinks that we're going to bulldoze our way out of this, meaning every time an encampment forms, we're bulldozing it. That's not a solution. Forward-thinking leadership also means how are we protecting and how are we providing for our most vulnerable communities, especially folks that have been traditionally left behind,
Yes.
like in Phillips neighborhood or North Side, the corporations that have been polluting our neighborhoods. And that's why we have our black and brown families have the highest rates of like asthma and lung disease and cancer. What are we doing to make the city more affordable? Meaning providing a livable wage and protecting our renters so that they can stay in their homes. Those are the ways we can be proactive to provide a more affordable and accountable city, rather than having things so insular and isolated and allowing the issues to build up to a point in which I guess folks get fed up.
Yeah, no, that's a big issue. And as a Minneapolis, I grew up in this city, and I really care about it as much as you do or anybody else. And the homeless and seeing the people on the streets has been really kind of disturbing, especially during the winter times. Because think about it, these are people that have the same lives as we do.
Exactly.
And if you put on your shoes, and you feel bad for those people. So that's a courage. I really appreciate you. As many immigrants see you as their voice in the city, or in politics. What's been the hardest part about representing a community that's often misunderstood or targeted?
I think one of the bigger things that's misunderstood is that our immigrant communities want nothing more than what everyone else
Hmm.
needs and wants, right?
Yes,
Which are basic services from the city. They want their children to have a good quality education
100%.
and be able to go to school and back safely and not having gun violence in our schools. They want to be able to have job opportunities both in the city, but also be able to start small businesses without having a lot of barriers and red tape in the way. And that's why one of the things I want to do is have an office, a strong office of small business support,
Yes.
in which we can provide education, we can provide small business grants, but also how we bring in uh, businesses into the decision making process rather than making decisions for them and then saying later on, well, this is the policy that's happening, this is how it's impacting you. Again, forward thinking leadership means how we engage with them and learn from them so that we can uh, we can have policy that rather impacts them in a negative way, that they have their input and actually allows them to thrive and succeed. And I think that's the right approach. I want to have an office of small business support that also provides multilingual services because
Mhm.
we know we have a diversity of
Yeah,
businesses
yeah, yeah, for
here
sure.
in Minneapolis. So things like Spanish and Somali would be Oromo will be critical. I want to ensure that we have we know that our immigrants are largely working class and renters,
Mhm.
strong tenant and renter protections. One of the bigger issues we have is that we have a lot of out-of-state gigantic entities from California, Atlanta, New York,
Yeah, yeah.
buying up large properties, right?
Yes.
And their interest isn't to keep people housed; it's to make a profit. And so we want to make sure we're keeping our properties in community hands and making sure that we remain a city that's locally owned, not bought out by venture capitalists out of state.
Yeah, no, that has been happening a lot, and it reminds me of Starbucks closing a lot of stores because there are a lot of local coffee shops opening left to right. So I think it's good to kind of keep everything, yeah, in house. Um, Omar, you have been outspoken about public safety reform. What would you support Minneapolis police arresting federal agents who operate in the city wearing masks? What do you want to say about that? I know you have
Absolutely.
been really vocal about that one.
Yes,
Yeah.
actually, yes, and that's a couple of times the mayor brought that up in the debate, and this isn't a radical idea. In fact, and I mentioned this last night. Um, uh, Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi, with the support of her local district attorney, said that local law enforcement has the ability to enforce local law whenever we have agents coming into our communities with their badges concealed, uh, wearing masks, concealing their identity. And we got to use every tool in our toolbox to protect our most vulnerable, especially our
So
immigrant
you're saying
communities.
they should not hide their face. If they want
They
to
should not.
arrest people, we should see them. We should see who they are. We should see their badges,
They,
and that way they can.
yeah, if they, what are they afraid of? And number two, officers, MPD should not be interacting with ICE or assisting them
Okay.
in their immigration enforcement. We got to make sure our officers are focusing on local issues. That's number one. But number two, it's been 5 years since the murder of George Floyd.
Yes.
And since then, there has been no real plan by the mayor and no intent to have a plan. And so, what we heard loud and clear from neighbors is that we need a public safety system that works for everyone. And I know that the mayor tries to create this toxic environment in which if you're pro police accountability, that means you're anti public safety. And that's not the case. You can have both an accountable police force, just like we hold our teachers accountable, we hold our nurses accountable, all
Everybody
that.
accountable.
Yeah, you can hold our police officers accountable, right? Um, but at the same time, we know we don't need an armed officer for every single phone call. The city report last year showed that nearly half of 911 calls to MPD, they can be diverted away to other resources like BCR, behavioral crisis response, like mental health workers. And that actually matches what I heard at the Capitol from law enforcement, where they came and they said, we can't respond to every single call. We need help. We can't respond to every mental health call. And so if we're able to take off half of their caseload, nearly half of their caseload, then they're able to do things like focus on violent crime. They can focus on drug trafficking, human trafficking. They can clear the case backlogs in which there's a lot of case investigations that have gone either untouched or cold because they don't have the resources to resolve them, right? And if people have, for example, rape victims, they need justice. They need to have the ability to have their cases looked into and solved. And so we think that's the right approach. we need to be a city in which when you call 911, you get the right response at the right time. But right now, what we hear from folks is too many times they call 911, either the call gets dropped, or the call rings for too long, or the police take too long to come, or they
Yes.
don't come at all,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so we know that there's a strategic failure going on, and that needs to change.
Awesome. No, that's it's a great answer, Mr. Fateh. Which leads me to right now. What you described is holding police officers accountable, and just like any other professional, right? Um, and I guess a lot of people are misunderstanding that when you say that, they think that you are completely against the police or defending the police. What do you want to tell people who really think you are against the police completely? And
Yeah, and again, you can have a police force rather than holding them accountable. But the issue is that misinformation doesn't really stick because I'm the one that helped bring in $19 million in public safety aid for the city of Minneapolis at the
Awesome.
Capitol, right?
Yeah.
And so if I was anti-public safety, I wouldn't be doing that.
For sure.
And so what we're saying is that we need to be more strategic because there are too many instances in which people of color are being either murdered or hurt by our officers or neglected. We know that, for example, the murder of George Floyd, Officer Derek Chauvin
Yeah.
was an officer that had a problematic past, and not only did he have a lot of complaints filed against him, but he went on to become a trainer and then training that bad behavior. The same person that murdered Amir Locke under a no-knock warrant, he's the same person that had the same problematic past, but went on to train other people. And so what we're saying is that rather than police officers being held accountable for complaints and violations, they're getting promoted. And then when they get promoted, they go back and train other folks, and then that culture persists. And so what we're saying is that we need law enforcement to focus on violent crime, clearing the case backlog, but then also doing what they asked us to do also, and that is making sure that we have those alternatives to police also. But at the same time, we can't talk about public safety without talking about like the basic needs of people. No matter how many officers you add to the police force,
Yes.
unless we address people's basic needs of having stable schools and good wages and jobs and being able to start up businesses and having clean air and clean water, addressing the basic needs of people, that's how you really address crime and violence. Having an ambitious youth agenda, for example, is key both for youth programming and youth jobs. I think that's the right approach. But unfortunately, right now, we're not seeing any of that with the mayor.
No, that's great because I'm really big on the youth. As you know, I'm a big advocate for the youth and the next generation, and I think it's very important for the youth to get the help that they need. There's a lot of kids out there that have a great heart. They have a great ambition in life, but they don't have the proper direction or the safety, that they deserve. So it's actually important that you really touch that. Do you feel like Minneapolis is safer than it was 5 years ago?
I would say that not everyone feels as safe as they should be. And when folks are calling my office at the Senate saying that they're calling 911 and either the call gets dropped or officers don't show up, they're not going to feel safe.
Yes.
That's not safety. If we have instances in which people of color are still being gunned down or profiled or targeted, that's not safety. And so, again, we got to envision a public safety system in which everyone feels safe, in which we have a system in which when you call 911, you get the right call at the right time. And I think we can get there, but unfortunately, we have a situation in which rather than building out that public safety system, working with community, talking with community, the mayor has created an environment in which if you're not part of his thinking, then you're oppositional, you're the other, you're the enemy, right? You're a defunder, you're an abolisher, you're labeled as this or that.
Yeah.
And what we're saying is that, and what I've seen is that on this campaign is that whether someone in our city supports increasing our police budget or having more officers on that side of the spectrum, or if they're on the opposite side of the spectrum, meaning they want to defund or abolish the police, no matter where they fall on that spectrum or anywhere in between, they're unhappy with the situation right now. Nobody's happy right now.
Yes.
And so that's a clear indicator that we need a new direction.
No, beautiful. And I think the city of people of Minneapolis really spoke, like I said. Um, if I know you're really big on housing,
Mm.
and I know housing is crushing right now.
Yeah.
Do you want to touch that topic and renters and what your plan is as a mayor if you get elected?
Absolutely. A few things. We need to incentivize building more affordable housing. And when I say affordable, I mean truly affordable, meaning folks shouldn't be spending more than a third of their rent, a third of their income
On rent.
on rent. I think, and so I carry legislation around the Minneapolis 2040 plan, which was a plan that did things to increase plans to increase our housing stock, looking forward towards 2040. Things like um, multiplexes, multifamily housing, things like transit-oriented density, building more housing around our transit stations, so folks can be able to move around the city without needing to have a car,
Mhm.
things like that. There was a lawsuit against that. I had a legislation to clear up that lawsuit so that the projects can be cleared. We need to make sure again that we're providing more opportunities for our properties to be locally owned. I supported, as a senator, the city council. They passed two ordinances that the mayor didn't support. They supported two ordinances, the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act and then the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act, so that tenants and community members have the opportunity to purchase buildings rather than having these out-of-state entities swipe them up. I think that's the right approach. We got to make sure that we have a strong rent stabilization policy so folks aren't getting priced out of their out of their homes. And doing so, I'll work with city council, work with all stakeholders to formulate that plan and because we know in 2021 on the ballot measure, the city by majority voted to explore rent stabilization and formulate a policy around that. And I think we need to make good on that process. So our vision includes building more affordable housing, making sure everyone is housed, making sure that the housing stock is still locally owned, making sure that there's good quality housing that people live in. One of the units I visited in Loring Park had black mold in it. There was no heat in the summer, no AC in the winter. The front door
Wow.
were broken, and so that's done because there's an out-of-state entity owning it who just want to profit. They'd rather eat the costs of the violations of having those things happen, rather than doing the right thing of rehabilitating. And so we got to make sure that we're a city that enforces tenant protections. And lastly, I think it's important that we're doing more to educate folks on pathways to home ownership also.
Yes.
At the Capitol, we worked really hard to pass something called the First Generation Home Buyer Program.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard of it.
Yep, exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. And so we need to do a better job as a city educating folks on what's available and what's out there, and maybe even how, as a city, we can partner with the state to make things more accessible. And that's our vision for that.
No, that's great, especially helping folks or this younger generation towards their own equity.
Yes.
Not able to just keep paying somebody else. But I took that as what do you say that we need to hold more owners accountable.
Mm.
You're saying most of these owners, building owners, are out of state,
Yeah.
so they don't really care about the tenants or the residents of Minneapolis. They just want to collect money and leave. But yeah, it's kind of scary having to live at a house that don't have a winter. I mean, that don't have a heat,
Yeah.
especially when we know where we live in Minnesota.
Exactly.
So thanks for standing up for our people. I really appreciate it. This is a really tough question. I want to know if it's. I want to say if it's tough, but it's an interesting question. If somehow Donald Trump comes back for a third term, let's say, what will be your plan for you to protect him against Minneapolis?
Oh, protect Minneapolis against him.
Yeah, against him, I would say. Yeah.
No, that's cool. Well, I think that that's unconstitutional. No matter how much he wants to do
Because
that,
you've heard that he's
he really wants to. He's pushing for it. I
Yeah.
think his team is pushing for that. The unfortunate thing is that the reason why we're hearing a lot of these unconstitutional ideas
Yeah.
and things like that getting pushed forward is because he has a Supreme Court that's going to support him no matter what he does, right?
Yes.
A majority conservative Supreme
Yes.
Court. And so whether it's the third term or the current term, right now, if I'm able to be blessed enough to win this election, I'll be serving 3 years while he'll be in office 3 more years while I'm in office.
Yes.
And so we have a president that's literally saying that, for example, if you protect undocumented community,
Yes.
then your city is going to lose funding for X, Y, and Z. And so we got to think creatively of how we're going to make up for that gap in funding because we don't want to set that precedent. I serve as the chair of the Senate Higher Education Committee, so responsible for the budget of all the colleges and universities, private and public in the state. Last biennium, I helped manage $1.1 billion for our universities and colleges. And the stories I heard when Trump got elected were around our undocumented students getting picked up sometimes in dead of night on campus, their families not knowing where they're being detained, their lawyers not knowing where they're being detained, which is illegal, right? That's unconstitutional. But the college presidents were afraid of speaking out because if you speak out, then you're going to risk losing funding by the federal government, right? And so the president is trying to put us Trump is trying to put us in a position in which we have a choice between sacrificing our values, protecting our most vulnerable, or losing funding. And what I'm saying is, no matter what, under any circumstance, we cannot sacrifice our values. That's why it's going to take a cross-jurisdictional approach between every jurisdiction, the city working with the county, working with the state, to make up for some of that funding around the services that we need.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm running for mayor, is because the mayor has been unable to build the relationships cross-jurisdictionally with the county, with the state, to get the services and funding that the city needs. And that has to change.
Yeah, for sure. And I've seen somewhere that actually the Trump is sending more ICE agents to Minneapolis. I don't know if you've heard of that or not. How safe can these people feel? Because when you see ICE agents all over, and these immigrants that are waiting for their documents and stuff like that, what will be the right approach if they're stopped? What do you want to tell people who don't really know what to do if they engage with ICE or anything like that?
Yep, that's a very good question. And so a few things. Number one, what we saw on June 3rd on Lake and Bloomington when there was a raid was, again, a strategic failure by the city because they were unable or unwilling to disseminate information to our city council and to communities about what was happening. And so we went several hours without them being updated. Myself, the other candidates, other elected officials, city council, senators, representatives showed up to the scene. But we showed up to the scene after hearing about it from some of the boots on the ground immigrant organizations, right? About what was happening. And so what we learned that day is that, especially from the city auditor's office, is that we need to strengthen our separation ordinance, that MPD for any reason cannot collaborate with ICE. We had an email that got leaked that is in the media that ICE emailed MPD and Chief O'Hara saying, "Thank you for your assistance. Thank you for your escorting us out of the scene." For us, that's assistance, that's collaboration. That should not be happening. And so MPD, no matter if it's crowd control, if it's escorting them off the scene, they should not be helping ICE, period. Now, we know that the city cannot go about this alone. We know that there are a lot of boots on the ground organizations, as I stated earlier, that have been doing a lot of great work, like COPAL, like UNIDOS, like CARE Minnesota, that provide legal counseling, that provide know your rights trainings, educating community on what to do when ICE or federal agents are in our city, not to open your door, for example, what your rights are. And so as a city, we need to have a better education campaign with our city in partnership with them. And I think that's the approach to take. But again, the issue we're having is that we're having a mayor that's isolating himself and his office, and more worried about protecting his own power rather than protecting the people. And I think that's unfortunate. And that's a lot of the reason why you're seeing a lot of the anxiety and fear in our community members. And unfortunately, the only way to change that is by having a new mayor.
No, definitely. And the reason why I said that is I've seen a lot of people who are, scared for their lives, and they're still waiting for their documents and stuff like that. So I had one guy told me, man, I don't like stepping a foot outside of my door because I don't know if I'm going to be arrested. I don't know if I'm going to be deported, and when you hear stories like that, it's kind of, it's kind of scary, because these people are here to, I guess, make better lives, just like how our parents came here, how we came here and stuff like that, Omar, a lot of young people feel disconnected from politics. How do you plan to make local governments feel real and relevant to them again?
I think that we need leadership that's continuously going into community, talking to people. I remember when I first got elected to the Senate. One of the commitments I made was that I'm not going to be in an office in which you need to lobby me, you need to convince me. You need to just come to my office, talk to me, educate me about what's going on in the community, what are some of the issues you're facing, and let's get to work. one of the proudest moments of my life was getting something called the North Star Promise passed,
Okay.
which was tuition-free college for working families, right?
Oh, okay.
And so, because of that bill, families can go to students can go to that are from working families go to college without the burden of having lifelong debt, right? And so, one of the reasons why I'm proud of getting that across the finish line was because that was a direct result of us partnering with students at the Capitol, students from different colleges, saying that we got to tackle college affordability. And so, before I got selected to be the chair of the higher education committee, usually the chairs would just get their budget allocation to them from leadership, and then they would just spread the dollars to the different campuses for something called O&M, operation maintenance,
Yes.
not really line by line stuff. And so as a chair, I really went line by line looking at what's working, what's not working, how we can make our colleges better serve our students. But I did so, again, in partnership with the student groups, in partnership with professors, in partnership with workers, right? And we were able to build a higher education budget in which we were able to provide tuition-free college for working families, 24/7 mental health support, ending campus hunger grants. And we saw for the first time in nearly a decade and a half, we were experiencing a decade and a half of declining enrollment. Students were not attending college, but now for the first time, we're seeing an increase in enrollment, right? And that's a direct result of us going line by line on the budget, but also engaging with the young people. And so that's how we know now that young people are not only the future, but they can educate us on what's needed
Yeah.
and how to better service our communities and how to better service our families. And so I think that's the approach to take. They're looking to be collaborated with. They have the ideas. It's just too many times I think government seems to isolate them and make decisions with them, for them, and with them, and not in partnership with them. I should have said without them, not with them, but instead of in partnership with them. And so, in the decision-making process, it's really important to include them. And then we need also to have more young people getting active within the electoral process, understanding the differences between local government, county government, state government, federal government, what their powers are, organizing around candidates that they feel passionate about,
For sure.
but also stepping up and running. We need more young people.
Yeah,
running for
yeah, yeah.
office.
I actually, I'm a big fan of that. I'm like, we need to educate the next generation for them to get involved in, in their own cities, counties, and stuff like that.
Yes.
You touch a topic that I was actually going to talk about: education.
Yes.
As a father of 3 kids,
Yes.
I do want the best schools for my kids.
Yes.
Talk about schools. Talk about good schools, especially in Minneapolis. Minneapolis has been really receiving a lot of backlash, in the last couple of years, that public schools are not really way to go. So that's why you see a lot of parents will take their kids to private schools, Muslim schools. Talk about public schools, higher education, and what your plans will be if you get elected.
For sure. And so I'll start with the Minneapolis public schools, K through 12, and then I'll talk about colleges, universities, the higher education. What we've seen is that, especially after COVID-19, that a lot of our students have been struggling.
Yes.
I remember having parents tell me that my 8th grader is reading at a 4th grade level, for example, not up to where they're supposed to be at. And so we've seen that there's been decades long of disinvestment back from the plenty years and before, and our public schools. And so not only for our public schools, but for our special education programs also. I have a sister that has intellectual disabilities, special needs. There's something that's I'm passionate about because I've seen her bounce around different schools because special education has been an issue in how we service our kids. And so we need to do better in funding our special ed programs and special education also. But we need a mayor that's also actively showing up because, yes, while the mayor doesn't have much to do with our public schools, he can be, or they can be, a direct advocate for our public schools at the Capitol, saying we need more funding, we need additional funding, showing up to the picket line, standing with our teachers. We've seen yes, parents complaining, and we've seen a lot of misinformation around what's happening in our public schools, and a direct result of that, we've seen a lot of the students bleed out, going out to our charter schools.
Yes.
But I believe that we need to have strong public institutions, and that's going to take funding, and that's going to take leadership that stands up for them. and that's actively engaging and thinking of creative ways of how do we increase that funding and bring our students back. Because within our public institutions, there's a diversity of thought, diversity of students. Students get to engage with each other, learn about each other, and I think that's the right approach. But also it's going to take supporting our teachers, supporting our ESPs, supporting our and working with the school board. Now, in terms of higher ed, we've passed a lot of great programs and opportunities for students, but we need to be a city that's, again, actively educating families on what's out there and partnering with them. We need to be a city that's having FAFSA workshops regularly, right?
Yeah,
We need to be a city that's actively engaging, plugging students into internships.
100%.
There's a lot of nonprofits and companies and organizations in which we can partner with and plug students in. If a student wants to work in the environmental space, how do we plug them with the environmental group? If a student wants to be an entrepreneur, how do we connect them with Stip Society Coffee with the entrepreneur, right? Say, okay, show them the ropes, you know what I mean? That's the approach I think we need to take, where the city is more hands-on and collaborative. And especially within our higher education space, plugging in students. I used to be an academic advisor. This was 13, 14 years ago at a community college. And when students were deciding on majors and things, I remember I used to actively help them, place them into internships, because I used to tell them, you want to pursue this right now, but if you do an internship, you might find that you actually don't like this, you want to pursue something else. And there's a lot of times when students completed the internship, they came back and said, oh yeah, I want to change my major. I don't want to do this anymore. Right?
Yeah, because they hands-on. They've seen
they've seen it, and they say, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of forward-thinking type of actions that we need from the city, being more hands-on, more collaborative, and helping our working families and our young people thrive.
Yeah, no, I think it's very important for an elected city official to be really engaging with the community, not just when the elections are on the corner, I think. So the fact that you really touch that is really important, I think. When it comes to, a lot of, especially Somali kids in our community are really struggling, in terms of not being where they want to be. Tell me, why haven't we seen a lot of organizations such as, mentorship programs? What are your plans in terms of, creating mentorship programs for these, young men who are really struggling in life, who, like I said earlier in this segment, they may have a good heart, they have a great plan, but they don't have whatever it takes, to see somebody leading the ropes, What are your plans of, creating programs like that? Because I think it's very important.
Absolutely, 110%. And that's why, again, we have to have an ambitious youth agenda as a city, for youth programming, for mentorship programming, but also youth jobs. And so we got to think creatively of how we're plugging in students and young people to these different type of mentorship organizations and programs. I remember that there was one program we were supporting at the Capitol of formerly incarcerated.
Okay. What does it focus on?
Young black men, so that they can teach financial literacy, show them the ropes, saying, hey, these are some of the mistakes I made. This is the direction we want to put you in, because I had the lived experience. This is the mistake I made. I don't want you taking the same route, right? At the same time, it's important to put money in the pockets of our young people as well. And that's why I expanded, again, the Teen Teamworks program.
Yeah.
And I remember at the end of the summer of that program, I got to connect with a couple of the young folks that were young black students, right?
Yeah.
And I know that in the media, there's a lot of negativity around, these young people are breaking car windows, or they're causing chaos, and the city's less safe because of them. When in reality, it's because it's a failure on leadership to invest in them. And so when the program concluded, I remember talking to some of the young people about how did the program go, the Teen Teamworks. You're making 17, 18 bucks an hour. What do you spend the money on, right? And I was expecting them to tell us like, oh yeah, I bought a PS5, or I bought an iPhone or iPad,
Yeah.
But no, what they told me was, I helped mom pay rent the last couple months. And so these so-called like bad young kids are the ones that when we invest in them, they felt that sense of responsibility and ownership to help their families and help their younger siblings too, And that shows you that it's on us to invest in them, because their heart's in the right place. They want to do good. It's just that we're not harnessing their creativity. We're not harnessing opportunities for them, and we need to do so because they're the future, right?
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
and if and if we don't take care of them, the streets will.
Yeah.
And so we need to make sure that we're investing in them and providing the opportunities for them. And I've seen firsthand what that opportunity looks like and the results of it. And so we need to expand that, and we need to making sure we're plugging them in the right place and letting them know about the opportunities that are out there.
No, definitely, because there's too many of them out there, and we can't really waste them. There are a lot of great kids, because I work with these kids on a daily basis. You with the bus company, and because I'm connected with these schools,
Yeah.
and sometimes when I speak with them and ask them what are your plans, majority of them don't even have a career path, and to me, it's we haven't invested enough time into these kids, and trust me, there are like a lot of brilliant,
Yeah.
smart kids out there, and if they don't have somebody who can pave the way,
Yeah.
it's kind of scary, man.
Absolutely.
So the fact that
Yeah. No. You're absolutely right. I remember I was visiting different locations in which there are unhoused people. And so one of the locations I was visiting was on Lake Street, which there was a large congregation. And I remember I was talking to one of the young folks who was maybe 21, 22 years old, and he's been homeless for a couple of years. And he
Wow.
had like a notebook that he had of like all this like drawings. He was drawing anime, and he was extremely talented, right? And I was thinking to myself, like, you should be like an MCAD, Minnesota College of Arts, Minneapolis College of Arts and Design, right?
Yeah.
We should be harnessing that kind of creativity and helping these folks, because there's a lot of talent and a lot of creativity that's just gone wasted because we've let them slip through the cracks, right? And so um, the city needs and the mayor needs to stop looking at our homeless population as a city burden and instead look at it as a city responsibility. And that's the kind of vision that we have for our city.
Beautiful, beautiful. Omar, I wanted to touch two more topics before we wrap it up here. A lot of people really appreciate the fact that you really want to raise the minimum wage to $20.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that?
Let's do that. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, a couple of things. Number one, we believe that one job should be enough, and that folks are struggling with the rising costs of childcare, healthcare, rent, food costs. A lot of Trump's policies at the federal level are causing day-to-day costs just to skyrocket, right? And so we've heard from many families that they're working one or multiple jobs and not even still making ends meet.
Yes.
And so I remember there's a lot of unease and conversations around when we're having $15 an hour minimum wage conversation. Folks saying like businesses will disappear from the community, businesses would leave, and that didn't happen. In fact, we saw that attendance was better, people's livelihoods were better, their health was better, and I believe it had a positive impact on businesses, right?
Yes.
And so we want to make sure that folks, that one job is enough, that we raise the minimum wage to $20 an hour, because if we don't do that, then folks are become more reliant on social services. They need more help from the government, and if we're not paying it on the front end, it's going to be paid for on the back end. And so we want to make sure that folks have the ability to live a good quality life, to make sure that they're able to pay for food, pay for rent, pay for their children, pay for their child's needs. And we think that's the right approach. And for far too long in this city, actually, I was supporting at the state level, we had a $20 an hour minimum wage that majority of the caucus was supporting. I think Senator Zainab Mohammed was carrying that bill. And so we had a lot of folks come and testify and talk and come to the Capitol in support of that legislation. Even some business owners, by the way, saying, hey, we see the need for this because we're already doing this, and there's actually some benefits to actually doing this. And so as a city, we want to end poverty wages and lead the way in the city of Minneapolis, and I think we can get there.
Awesome, beautiful. No, that's a great approach to help people, because I know it could be really tough making a living by earning like $14, $15 an hour, especially when everything, things are going up. Cost of living, Minneapolis cost of living is going way up.
Yeah.
I remember when you could rent a 2-bedroom for like $1,200 or maybe $1,100. And I'm talking about like a great apartment. And right now, that's, I think double or if not more,
It's a lot. And even the new units that are being built are not even suitable for families. Like they look state of the art, but like a 2 bedroom that's like 700 square feet,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
too
yeah.
small. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean? And
yeah.
like that's not the way to go. We want to make sure that folks have good, adequate housing. We're keeping rents affordable, and also that folks get a livable wage, because for far too long we're seeing that wages seem to have stagnated and costs have only gone up,
Yeah.
and so we need to keep up.
No, definitely, definitely. I hear you there, my friend. Let's talk about transportation,
Yeah.
and I know that has been a really big, thing in your agenda,
Yes.
and public transportation. Let's touch on that topic and see what your plans are.
Yeah, we want to make sure that we're a city outside of driving, that if folks want to bike, they can bike, make it more bikeable, walkable. If you're someone with disabilities, rollable. And we're investing in that kind of infrastructure. I remember at the Capitol, we had an increase in something called the Metro Sales Tax.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of diverting that to like highway expansion and working on how we had a lot going into public transit, so that we're providing for our public transit infrastructure. I want to see things like 24-hour bus lanes on Hennepin.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to make sure that we're investing in that. We got to make sure we're investing in safety for our pedestrians and our bikers also. Things like traffic calming with roundabouts and bump outs and things like that. I remember I worked with Councilmember Koski last year to bring in $1 million for that, because the city was not doing much investment in that. And so what I'm hearing from folks is that we need to make sure we're supporting our light rails, our buses, bike lanes, so folks can have multimodal transportation. One of the issues we're having also is that in dealing with our encampments, the mayor seems to be fencing off sidewalks. So especially folks with disabilities are not able to access that. And I think that shouldn't be the case. We should have a city that's more accessible, more walkable, and have all forms of transportation
Yes.
be supported. And I think we can get there. It's just we need that vision as a city to make it happen.
No, definitely. That's really important, and to have a safe, green environment, for sure. Which brings me to my next question. Minnesota is known for having two seasons, winter and construction. What's going on with every street in Minneapolis, man?
Yeah.
Especially on Hennepin.
It gets really bad, especially because the winters are so brutal.
Yeah.
I think that the pavement and the roads get really beat up.
Yeah, yeah. The
And
potholes and all of that stuff.
Exactly, and we're
Yeah.
consistently having to fix things up. But Hennepin is going through a redesign and reconstruction. But one of the issues I think with that is that there needs to be a better education campaign by the city again,
Yeah.
to talk to the business owners about why it's happening, how to help them with small business grants. I had a business owner tell me that had a business on Hennepin that they had to shut down because they lost 85, 90, 95% of the foot traffic. They couldn't sustain it. And so ahead of time, we should have a plan with the business owners. This is how many months that this construction is going to impact you. This is how we're going to have we're going to find out how much foot traffic we're affecting. We're going to make up for that with grants. We're going to help you at least pay your lease also. If we go beyond that, if the construction goes beyond what we're anticipating, this is how we're going to better support you. And also and I think that connection piece is better, because a lot of times businesses don't even know where to begin, where to go, where to seek help from.
Yes. Yeah.
And so the city has to do a better job actively on the ground, talking to businesses, talking to folks, providing those services, because the small businesses are what make Hennepin flourish and makes our downtown flourish,
Yeah,
and makes
for
our
sure.
city flourish,
For sure.
Without them, we'll crumble. And so it's important for our city to support them as best as we can.
No, definitely. The fact that you said you will be building an entire office for business owners is great, because I know a lot of businesses that struggle with parking in Minneapolis.
Yes.
Especially I'm not talking about like a private parking, street parking, where it says you can't park. And the fact that you have plans on solving those problems, because a lot of business owners feel like they're disconnected from the city. Like when they request help find more parking, the process takes too long, or nobody even responds to them for like weeks and months. So hopefully that will change if you get elected.
Yeah, there needs to be better communication, and there's going to be disagreements sometime between city, and there's going to be disagreements between business owners or community. But what I have found is that disagreement is healthy as long as there's communication. People don't want to get blindsided by policy or ordinances.
For sure.
They want to be included in the decision-making process. And a lot of time as legislators, as policymakers, we have to understand we're not always going to get it right. And we're not always going to know everything. We need to get educated by the folks that are being impacted also. And I think that's the approach that I want to take if I'm mayor, just continuing the same tradition I had as a senator.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you. I got two more questions for you.
Yeah.
Why should they vote for you versus Jacob Fry?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. And so right now, Minneapolis, there seems to be two versions of Minneapolis. One for the wealthy and the well-connected, and the donor class, the folks that donate to the mayor, and then the rest of everyone else, our immigrants, our transit riders, our renters, our young people, our seniors. And one side gets the access and the protection and the priority, and then the rest of us get broken promises and vetoes. In fact, there was one time in which the mayor vetoed an entire budget because he was not happy.
Wow.
And so we're envisioning a city that works for everyone. I have experience and I've seen firsthand at the Capitol what we can accomplish when we have a legislative body that actually works with the executive. And what we have a problem with right now at the city is that the mayor and city council have an adversarial relationship.
Yes.
And at the Capitol, we were able to pass some of the most transformational pieces of legislation. And I'm honored to lead on things like tuition-free college for working families, fair wages and protections for our Uber and Lyft drivers, which is, by the way, the strongest protections in the nation.
Yes.
that we passed.
Yeah.
The legalization of fentanyl testing strips, a whole host of human services legislation that was also bipartisan. We're all able to get that done because the executive and the legislative body, the House and Senate, were able to work together. Now, we need a relationship reset between the mayor and the city council, but also I'd argue between the mayor and the county and the mayor and the state. And there's a reason why the mayor doesn't have a single endorsement from our county commissioners and from our state legislators. And it's because he doesn't work well with them. And so when the mayor doesn't actively work well with the different jurisdictions, with the county and with the state, it's impossible to bring in the funding and the resources we need to help our city, especially the folks that need help the most are folks with disabilities, our young people, our small businesses, our immigrants, right? And so we need more than ever someone that's going to partner with folks and collaborate to make sure that the city can be what we know it can be. And so that's the vision I have for our city, making a city that's more affordable and accountable to everyone.
Awesome. No, well put together. I know in July, DFL endorsed you.
Yes.
And it was a huge victory for your campaign. And then, unfortunately, later on, we found out that the endorsement was rescinded. Do you want to talk about that and how that affected your campaign, if it did? I know in the past you said they might take the endorsement, but they can't take the people away from me.
Yes.
So if you want to touch that.
I appreciate that. Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to take a step back to just let folks know that in the process, rather than having a primary vote, we have something called the caucuses and convention for the endorsement. And so there's a volunteer group that is put together by the party that set up the caucuses, in which on the caucus night, people go out to things called their local precincts, which are like neighborhood gatherings where they talk about the candidates and initiatives that they support. And then folks are elected as delegates. Those delegates then go on to the convention, and whoever gets 60% of the vote on the convention day at the convention gets endorsed. And so we had volunteers that were from the party, from the city, that were spending a lot of hours, hundreds of hours, putting together the caucus, putting together the convention, setting it up, making sure that it's accessible, making sure that there are prayer breaks, for example, and things like that. And so a lot of effort went into it by volunteers. And so we went through a process in which we got endorsed. Not only our race, but the park board races got endorsed, right? And so fast forward, we got the endorsement. And after we got the endorsement, it ruffled a lot of feathers. People were upset, especially the establishment.
Yeah.
No one was expecting us to win.
Yeah.
But it shows you that the city is ready for a new direction.
Yeah, for sure.
And there was a body made up of 28 members from the Constitutional Bylaws and Rules Committee at the state level that mostly out of city Minneapolis.
Yeah.
A lot of folks are actually allies with the mayor, supporting the mayor's campaign.
Yeah.
That took away the endorsement. In fact, one of the mayor's supporters said that we have a lot of campaign donations, a lot of wealthy donors that are saying that we're not allowed to cash our checks unless we take away the endorsement from Omar.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's literally the wealthy class, the wealthy donors bullying their way through. And so they played their games and removing the endorsement, but it only backfired. We saw a huge spike in support, a huge spike in donations, people coming out to door knock. We had close to 300 people door knock right after the endorsement was taken away the day after or the weekend after.
So that added more fire to the woods.
It added a lot more fire to the campaign, a lot more energy. It became national attention also. Folks from like CNN and MSNBC and New York Times and all these folks reaching out for interviews and talking about what's happening because they wanted to understand how this was possible.
Yeah, for sure.
And because this was historic, there has never been a candidate that defeated an incumbent in the mayoral process for the endorsement since the party was founded 80 years ago. That never happened before. So this was the first time it happened. And of course, folks were not happy about it, especially the establishment. But again, like you said, I said earlier, they could take away the endorsement, but they couldn't take away the people. And so we're knocking thousands of doors. We've knocked thousands of doors daily and calling thousands of people, reaching out to people. And on the doors, we're hearing that folks want a new mayor and they want new leadership. And folks are going to be shocked on election night when we come out on top.
No, that's beautiful. Omar, I want to wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
I know you're in a great place. And thank you so much for coming to sit down with me. I wish you nothing but success. For our viewers, hope you learned so much from Omar, as much as I did today. And thank you for watching. Until next episode.
Thank you.
Yeah.